Chris, sorry, you had an empty table.
It's okay, buddy. How are you?
Good, really good. Can't complain. We're filming.
Yeah. Wow. What? Oh, something else is going. Okay, here we go. Let me clear that off here. So, anyways, everybody, we are here today to speak with Mario Barth about the ink situation in Europe and in the UA. Also, we all know that you, Mario, are a manufacturer of ink, and you have a certain stake in the game. But I don't want everybody to listen to this and think of it being a think of Mario as a tattooer, because this is really how we have to think. Mario's been a tattooer for as many years as I can remember. He's a great tattooer, always been a proponent of tattooing, and that's why he's fighting this fight. So tell us a little bit, Mario, about what is going on with everything over there in Europe.
Hey, thanks, Chris, for the introduction. Yes, so I see it mostly from a tattooing standpoint, right? As a tattoo artist, really what goes on. And what currently happened is, one day before Germany shut down for the COVID issue in December, they decided to really bring out that a law is being passed with a 2-year grace period, that the pigment blue and green 7 and blue 15, green 7 are going to be banned for tattooing. Which actually makes absolutely no sense, number one. And number two, it's really restricting what we as an artist can do or our client can get. So it's a really interesting scenario how it happened. It happened over the past years. This is an ongoing situation since 2008. If many of the people know that I've spoken about this several times, multiple times on multiple occasions, that this is going to come down if there's no really pushback from our industry. And unfortunately, this is where we are today. To get into the situation, really, it will affect everybody. And that's really the big issue we have in here, because how the enforcement code is being written is that actually the tattoo artist is going to be liable for it, what he's using. So forget all the manufacturing and forget all the manufacturers which are out there to try to work on this or have tried to work on this. The ultimate effect will be on the punishment, if you want to call it, or the fines will be on the tattoo artist. And that's how they locked it up, that basically there's going to be a serious issue in the future.
So let me ask you a question. So basically, ink manufacturers will still be able to manufacture ink and sell ink, but basically what it's going to come down to is the tattooer putting the ink into the skin and using the ink on clients. That is what's going to be illegal, correct?
This is how it's currently written, yes. So a part of it is that they urge manufacturers not to use this pigment. There's no scientific research why we shouldn't. It's considered that there's a risk factor, like anything, right, in the world has a risk factor. I've said this several times. If you drink 1 glass of vodka, it's no problem. If you drink a gallon, you're gonna have an issue,
For sure.
And it's just really that simple, and that's what people forget, right? It's like, of course, there's always a risk factor. So because nobody knows. Every person is different. Every skin is different. Every talent is different. Every qualification of an artist is different. And then there's still the unknown part, right? What just can happen because it happens. So aftercare involved, education, cleanliness, hygiene, those are all the base parts of it. But the challenge, really, what happens is there was no merit to really do this. And the biggest base where they started was that tattooing got grouped in with cosmetics. And in cosmetics, the pigment blue and green, and there's a couple other ones actually, are considered rinse-off products because they leave a permanent stain on, let's say, when you dye your hair. There were some cases where blue pigment left a permanent stain on the scalp. So the situation now is to say you can't use it because it's dangerous, it leaves a stain, and you're gonna have a blue scalp. Hey, quite the contrary, in tattooing, we need it permanent. So
Yes.
we can't be grouped into this category. You guys cannot put us in this. You can't get a square in a round hole, right? If the hole is big enough, it works. But it's like the black hole, right? But it's you cannot just say we are like a hairdresser or we are like a when you dye your hair, or it's not. We need a safe, permanent product. And the challenge we have in is that there's currently no safer alternative available than those blue and green pigments which they're banning.
And we talked a little bit the other day about the fact that there's other pigments that are on the chopping block as well, which are a lot of our primary colors that go across the board, which mixes every color that we use. And with the consumer being so adamant about color realism, traditional Japanese, all those boxes get checked because of the fact that they're all color-based tattoo designs. So
yeah, so and it's also, I mean, we cannot forget, it's again, I'm in this battle with them for years now, right? And they have tried this with the black years ago. I don't know if many people really know, but approximately 5 years ago, they have tried to put the ban on black ink in tattooing. And they say because of the pH and pK values that they are too high. There was no merit for it whatsoever. The industry was luckily enough that with hard work of many manufacturers, they got a new pigment which has different levels and different elements, what they could use to recreate a black ink. Unfortunately, it is already a changed ink, right? So what happens is it's not anymore what we were used at. It's something new. And unfortunately, legislative issues come in and they prohibit and restrict more and more with less and less data that it would be harmful, because whatever we're implementing into the tattoo industry now, which is brand new, we really have no historical data because we are forced to go out of our 40, 50, 60 years of history, what we have as tattoo artists combined as an industry, right? Because we talk to each other. Hey, did you have problems with this color, with that color, with this color, from artist to artist? And then you make your own adjustment to say, okay, I'm not going to use this because there were certain circumstances, right? And what happens now is we go into a territory which is completely unexplored. And completely, we have no historical data. So we actually now they're pushing us in a factor where we have to take additional risk.
And that risk really comes down to, as far as I'm concerned, the risk between the tattoo artist and the client. We all know that there is this risk. Just like with a bee sting, some people get stung 20 times and it not do anything to them. Some will get stung one time and could cause death. This is the issue. We don't have these problems, but they are definitely trying to protect the consumer from this issue, which the consumer already releases liability because of it. It's an 18 years and older decision, just like buying cigarettes is 21 or buying alcohol at 21 is the same decision. It's an adult decision. So the real person who's going to get the brunt of the issue is the consumer. And how do we correct that?
Chris, you are 100% on the spot. It is basically, it's the same. We know people have a peanut allergy, right? Does it mean you can't sell any nuts anymore? I mean, are we really that nuts?
Yeah.
You know, it's just a very difficult situation. It's for everything in life, there's a risk, right? And I understand we have to protect our minors and our children. But when you become an adult, you can make a certain decision for yourself, what you want to have in your life and what not. And it's as you say, 100% correct. And I've said this, I just read a report, what I did for Brussels in 2010, yesterday. And I mentioned it already on the health board there, that I said, listen, this is an adult activity. A person assumes a certain amount of liability and risk. The tattoo artist has a certain amount of liability, which product he uses, how he's trained, how he performs, the how is the art that's anyway expandable, right? This is anybody's choice. What you think is art, I maybe don't have to. It makes no difference.
True.
And then there's the client who assumes a certain kind of risk where something could happen. Nothing else as you go to a dentist, you assume a risk. Nothing else as you go to a hairdresser, you assume a risk. Nothing when you go somewhere else, to any doctor, you assume a risk. So well, anything you do, if you go into a bar, you assume a risk that you get drunk, right? And you make a decision as an adult that I will take that risk. There is no such thing that's zero risk. And unfortunately, that's what the people want to achieve, especially with Edge and Reach. They want to say, we need zero risk, we need zero risk, we need zero risk. It doesn't exist. And the biggest push behind that comes from the laser industry, because what happens is there's a person over there which basically put it into place when they remove tattoos, because more people in today's time get tattoo removal done, right? That now what happens is they shatter the pigment, which is stable in your skin, right? And it's with the macrophages, it's encapsulated, and it's really technical, but it's really simple at the same time. They shatter it, it's like they're shooting a missile into a building, and then the pigment gets shattered into smaller particles. So the macrophages can't hold on to the particles, and they are not coming external, they're going internal. That's what they're questioning, and they say, like, what's happening with the tattoo pigment when we have to remove it? My theory is create a better system, because it's why are we now responsible for the laser industry? We are responsible to have a safe product, to give it to so an artist can focus on what they have to do and what they do best, creating art. The end consumer should have a safe product, and there's a certain risk associated with, like anything, as you say, and that's really it. That's where it has to be taken care of. It has to be taken care of by the end consumer. They need to go out. They need to let the people know that they are in charge of their own body. It's nothing else. It's another restriction of any person's freedom.
Now, let me ask you, Mario, will this affect the manufacturers on any plane? Will you be able to purchase the blues and greens? Will you be able to make the ink? Will you be able to sell the ink? All that stuff, I'm kind of under the impression that it'll just go along, and maybe a safety issue, not for human consumption, be put on the label or something like that. What does the manufacturer have to do with this situation?
I think it's a very good question. This whole movement started in Europe. It came out of Switzerland years ago from a color company who talked to the legislative people or the government or regulatory agencies that they can create a better product to corner the market, right? All of them are out of business today. So there is no manufacturing anymore. And they say, like, oh, the Americans are going to do all the manufacturing. That's where the bad product comes on. No, it's not. The problem is the product you had, which did work, you banned it. So you have no other manufacturers. And the same is going to happen in the United States. They will put sanctions on the tattoo. There will be enough countries where there is not. Right, it's this we're talking about right now. It's in Europe. I believe it will be. I have predicted that 5 years ago that this will happen, and many people have said it will never happen. And I will predict right now it will happen in the United States in less than 5 years, because the FDA and the REACH is very close connected. The world becomes a very small place. Information travels quick, and we are still a thorn in the eye of regular people which have no tattoos, right? They always are concerned what happens with our life, but we are not concerned what they do with no tattoos, right?
Right.
So I think it will cause a strain. It did cause a strain over the past years. We updated continuously in pigments. Prices have gone up exponentially. We have certain pigments which are like 60 times the costs which they were before, and the price to the tattoo artist is still somewhat stable but very fragile. I think there will be a big tidal wave coming, or a tsunami coming, because as soon as the first cosmetic company comes in, that 1 ounce of pigment will cost you between $250 and $400 a bottle.
That's what I was thinking. And do me a favor, Mario. I know a little bit of the history of what you have done in testing your product and to make it as safe a product as you can. I know that you have gone to great lengths. Explain that to everybody.
So what we do in France, we have an internal research laboratory with microbiologists, and we also have a partner in Boston, a company which is called Emulate, which does all the research for wound healing for the military, and they have products on the a space station to see how infections work and how they heal, and how it's going under like extraordinary circumstances. We have engaged with them about 5 years ago because we knew already this is coming, and we started working on a more scientific level. So what we really do is we have all our pigments out there. We're testing them on skin chips, which are specifically created for us in Intense. So we don't have to do any animal testing. What basically happens is it's an organic chip, right, which actually lives. It has a function like a human being. It breathes, it bleeds. It's crazy technology, and we created a skin barrier where we basically tattoo that artificial chip, and we can really see what happens to the pigment. What is stationary? Where does it go? What does go into your bloodstream? What doesn't? What is excessively pushed out? And what is the effect on your organs? What's the effect on your brain barrier function? What's on your lungs? What's on your kidneys? What's on your livers? And we have done extensive research the past 5 years, and came a very long way. And that's the reason why we think we will have data, what's going to be valuable, because there's really no data existing on either side. And that's big. Like one of the biggest issues here, even the regulatory agencies have no historical data what's happening when that is. They have minor data where they tested something on a rat or something, but they don't have real data. There was a big study done just very quick in Denmark by Dr. Sarah, which found that the European tattoo pigment safety, and he did a study that black ink causes cancer, skin cancer. And he had several rats tattooed. And after 3 years of study, I've spoken with him and said, like, listen, you have no case that this ever happened. He came back to us and he said, listen, it did cause skin cancer under hyper exposure for sunlight over a 3-year period. But the interesting part is that the rats which haven't been tattooed had skin cancer a year earlier. Because the sun exposure, there was no protection, right? No absorption of light. So it was more, for us logic thinkers, yeah, makes sense. And then I asked him if he can publish that data, and he said he can absolutely not for political reasons. So this is what we really have to work on. And I have spoken about this several times with the industry, right? And with industry leaders, and many of them are supportive, very supportive. And many of them, unfortunately, got things now that they become smaller, the group, right? They were going against it because they just think it's sell and we don't care, right? I mean, as an artist, the biggest part what people misunderstand by me is I'm in tattooing 40 years. So it's like I'm an artist first, and I still tattoo at least 3 to 4 times a week. So I want to save a product for me. I'm glad I could give it to other people as well, but I am active on skin every day. I want to make sure I have a responsibility to my industry to create a safe product and work with a safe product.
And you've also said to me when we were talking the other day about the other ink companies that are out there. As an artist, as a consumer myself, I know that I can use whatever it is I want to use. This isn't something that one manufacturer is facing. It's all the manufacturers, it's all the tattooers, it's all the consumers. And the difference is Europe is now reacting to the situation that they knew was coming and maybe ignored it. At this point now, trying to get this information out by you and I doing this, doing the roundtable in a few days, trying to pregame what could possibly be coming down the road. And, or it's coming, it's coming. There's no way to stop progress. And the big manufacturers of cosmetics and other corporations, they want a piece of tattooing, as they're already starting to take.
Right,
If
absolutely. I think you're on the spot. It's what happened in Europe, because with the inconsistency of the unified voice of the tattoo industry, that's really what we have to call it.
Right.
It is like they were able to push something through which could have been prevented with proper data, proper research, proper communication, right? I always make this explanation. We've spoken about this: Mac computer and PC, tattoo industry and regulatory agencies. They don't speak the same language. So what we need to do is we need to create a link and make them communicate properly, and do this proactively, not reactively. It's very difficult to change a law when it becomes law. So it's easier to prevent something and create good, strong, stringent guidelines for the manufacturers to create a safe product for the end consumer and the tattooist, so they can really spend their time tattooing, not thinking what they're going to put into the skin, that there could be an issue, right? So we need to create this, and that should be put in place, and this can only be done as a unity from the industry. And in this, I mean, the manufacturers, every single one of them, regardless what they manufacture, because if it affects the tattoo pigment, it will affect the needles soon. They're planning to do the cartridges, what everybody loves. They're planning now already that they're going to be placed as a medical supply or a medical tool. And sooner or later, the people in the industry say, oh, that's okay with me. No, it's not. Because if it becomes a medical tool, then you need to be a medical professional to use it. That's where the restrictions come in. And it's like, so this is what has to be transcended to the people and to the end consumer, that they understand that with those restrictions, their choice will be restricted in the future, what they can use or what they can put in the skin.
And like you just said, Mario, it will affect what happens with our needles. It'll affect what'll happen with our cartridges and all the other things that come down the line as far as how we can get them. We already see the issues that we're having with gloves right now, and trying to get gloves to tattoo. Gloves have tripled, quadrupled in price. This is what's going to happen across the board. So basically what's happening is, to the consumer, if all of these things happen in whatever the time, 5, 10 years or whatever, the price of tattooing will go from $100 to $200 an hour to $400 to $500 an hour, just because of the fact that they're probably going to have us have some kind of medical license to do it. They will probably be charging us as our equipment as a medical issue, and there's so many ways that this can get out of hand with everything that we do in tattooing.
Yeah, absolutely. You will have to move it to a medical building. You will have to have set everything up, your insurances, your liability, your medical malpractice insurance, all your stuff is going to go through the roof. So the actual artistry is going to get pushed out completely of it, and it's going to go where, as some people say, in the underground. I just don't think that underground, and it's just my opinion, which has existed when this industry was growing, it doesn't exist anymore. And also the punishment from the regulatory standpoint, it's going to put a different edge on it. And then most people say, okay, I'm going to create all my own product. That doesn't make it that doesn't make it legal. If you create your own product out of a blue pigment, which is an illegal pigment to use in tattooing, you're committing an illegal act, even though that there is no history that there was any recorded documentation that product was unsafe.
And you've been tattooing for 40 years, Mario. I've been tattooing for almost 30. And I can't remember more than 2 or 3 times in those years that I was tattooing where anybody had any problem other than in the early years with some of the red pigments, some of the older red pigments that were mixed and stuff like that. I really haven't seen too much reaction. How about you in your testing and through that stuff?
So same here. I've seen very, very minor reactions, right? Like true reactions. You know, we have been in a center for tattoo reactions in Denmark, and they had said they had 330 some cases, and we looked at it and we narrowed it down that only 20 cases of this were really reactions. Everything else was overworked, healing, aftercare, you know, regular stuff where people just had a little redness. And so not a reaction. I mean, we have to separate an infection, like an infection, a reaction to an actual pigment, right? And sometimes this can happen years later. I mean, I have seen it where somebody got tattooed, had no problems at all, and then 10 years later, it just popped up and the color had an issue. And it only had an issue by one tattoo, but not by the other, even though the same color has been used.
Right.
So I think it's very minute in an amount. It's less than 0. What we did a calculation on it at one time for the European Health Organization, where it was less than 0.5% of all tattooed people have a reaction or infection in some form or way to something. Itching skin is already considered a reaction, right? But it's not a reaction. Itching skin is healing. So if you cut this down, it's very, very, very minute. So we're really focusing on a minority, only on one person out of 10 million to see that nothing happens there. And that's really the challenge we have in it. I'm not saying that we should not test. I'm saying test, create a great product, try to put it in a market, do all your due diligence as a manufacturer, what you should do to really put a safe product out there. And many of the tattoo pigment companies which are on the market today have done this over the past years. It's not like that they didn't. They were stringently working all together in their own, not as a group, but for their own, to create a better product. The more information we learned about what we should look for, what could be a possibility of any inconsistencies with the colors, we look at this, and the other pigment manufacturers do as well. Some a little bit more than others, some a little bit less, and some really don't, I have to say it, give a rat's ass and make it in their garage.
Yeah. And what do you see? I know you were talking a little bit earlier, Mario, about the unification. I have said this over and over with my podcast that I'm trying to circle the wagons, basically, because tattooing is, I hate to say it, but it's kind of been taken over from the inside out. We don't really at this point have as much control as we did back in the day, and we're losing more and more. And one of the reasons that I wanted to talk to you about this is exactly what I'm talking about. We are losing control of our art form, and this is a First Amendment right to be able to free speech, free expression, free all this stuff. That's where we lie, not in the cosmetology. We are artists, and this is our medium. How do you think that we can move forward and get possibly a more unified idea of what is happening with our industry and kind of pull it together so that we can fight the good fight together as a whole versus, because I know we were talking about the other day, votes, and having legislation brought to the places where it needs to be brought to, and having the consumers behind us because the tattoo industry is so small. But how do you see us pulling together so that we can get an idea of a one unit kind of industry like the Teamsters or something like that. You know what I mean? So we can kind of speak in, you know.
Yeah, I don't want to be awful, so we have to be careful. I'm like,
you are in Vegas, bro. You know what I mean?
I know. It's no, I think the situation. It's a great question again, and we brought this up when I started the Coalition for Tattooing Safety in 2011. Right, it took me like close to 5 years to put everybody together on the table. At the time, and I brought out all the manufacturers at that time into a room. Every single one had a lawsuit against each other, right? And I recommended at the time, it's like, stop this. You're cannibalizing yourself for something what makes no sense. There's a bigger enemy out there, and that's basically the regulatory agency which try to restrict what we do. I believe what you say, that we are artists. Unfortunately, we don't get the credibility, right? Because we can't hang our bodies into a museum, maybe soon. And that's the only reason why we are not considered an art form. And like, real people can't make money off what we do, right? Like, that's the problem. They can't sell the person you tattooed to somebody else, because then it would go in a different direction. So that's why tattooing does not get the credibility in the art industry. I believe what happens is that we need to accept at first that this is an industry which has to work together. Every other business industry has a group which works where people support, get together, talk, educate, and try to work on new and legislations, new regulations, new standards, right? Tattooing is all through the United States and is still not standardized throughout the United States. It's different in Michigan or Connecticut, or it's different in, Alabama or Mississippi. So we need to get standardized parts. I think people have to get together, really put it out there, let every client know that you need their support, that we are not being grouped in with something what we are not. We are not cosmetic professionals. We are tattoo artists. And that's our industry, that the people which come to us expect a certain service for, of course, a fee, because everybody has to make a living. And they should have the opportunity to choose and have a freedom of choice who to go to. And the artist should have a freedom of choice to use the product, what he wants to use, as long as it meets safety standards and criteria that he can provide that service.
And I completely agree with that. And that is pretty much how tattooing has gone from this point back. There were, if you went to the Pike in the 30s and 40s, man, there were 30 tattoo shops. You had your choice. Everybody had a little bit of different, they mixed their inks different. Some used this, some used that. Some, everybody was a little bit different. We have, as a consumer of tattooing, I still get tattooed.
Me too.
So that makes me a consumer as well as an artist. So as I see that, I see the fact that, how am I going to finish my bodysuit if I can't have the colors to finish my bodysuit? How is this going to affect me in my quest to be tattooed? And that's what you have to think about as an artist individual, is what is this going to do not only to you, but to your brothers, to your colleagues, to the people that you support around the globe? Because we all know that back in the day when tattoo magazines would come up and we would see Henning's stuff, we didn't put a face with Henning, you know what I mean? Except for the picture that was on the cover. That was the face. We didn't get to see what Henning had for breakfast, which we do now, quite possibly. I don't know if you post that stuff, but but this is, it's a global community, and tattooing is a global community. Every day you wake up to a global tattoo magazine. Everybody's posting their things. This is what's up.
Yeah, so basically the really different, it's a totally different environment, right? You can't turn back the time, right? This is the old Cher song, if I could turn back time, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. So what happens is, it's such a fast-paced environment. Messages go really quick, and people are very quick in posting and making comments about their life and their opinions and their part, and it's all great. But you have to be careful, because words are like bullets. When they come out, even if they're written on the internet and they come out of that, they will do damage where it goes, right? And there's nothing better for a regulatory agency to want to or put sanctions on us is like then divide and conquer, right? We've spoken about that. That's the big system here. It's like, let's throw it out there. It's all unsafe. It's all unsafe. Well, get him. And then the tattoo artist is anyway already the industry is a very fragile environment, right? Why? Because we're all artists, we're all independent, we all like do our own work, we live of our own hands work, right? So it's not something where so they're very eclectic, very like the artist has his own view, and it's a very vulnerable industry, but doesn't really fit into a corporate environment.
No.
But it is unfortunately that big. As soon as you open your tattoo shop and you work in there, you're a corporate business. That's why you incorporate, regardless if you think, oh, I'm an artist, I'm a rebel. No, you're not. You are a business owner. You incorporated your business. You're now part of the machine. And at this part, you have to understand that we need structure. We need structure, but we also need communication between each other. And that's more important than ever. We have all these information highways which are out there, but unfortunately, we are not using it to speak to each other. We speak to everybody else.
Right. And I hope that at some point that we can get the manufacturers of this on a podcast so we could talk about this and actually get to the bottom of it. Because I mean, I'm sitting here and I use Fusion ink, man, and the guy next to me uses Eternal, and the guy next to him uses a little bit of Starbright and a little bit of Attends and this that. It's the freedom of expression. It's the freedom of choice. It's the freedom that is being yanked out from underneath of us, to have those kind of freedoms, to be able to tattoo the consumer so that they have the freedom to come in and get the design that they choose to wear on their body. And I hope that at some point we can kind of get everybody to kind of come together so that we can kind of fight off the demons and keep them away long enough so we can get some regulations in there. Now, how, in your opinion, do we do that? How do we get past that point where we can get into the places that need to hear what we have to say?
I think the best way, in my opinion, is first of all, we have to stop cannibalizing each other, right? As tattoo artists, that we don't want to deal with the next shop down the street, right? They're all in the same boat. All the shops will have the issues. So I think, I mean, we have started the Coalition for Tattooing Safety. It's still active. It's a nonprofit organization. There's several other great organizations out there. We spoke about them a couple of days ago, right? What you've mentioned in California. Try to get your groups together and try to join in with those people and support them and really be part of the decision making. Like, get educated. That's the key. The more education you have about legislations, and then especially when you get to the point, I know we will have a show coming in October. Hopefully we can do it. We should have had it last year. We couldn't do it, COVID. We just have been told in Vegas that it seems that the conventions will open up. So we will have the event. It's completely nonprofit. That's how we have to fundraise, right? And we have to come together, have committee talks, have industry talks, have end consumer education, that they also understand that their freedom of choice for the tattoo is being taken away, and then put the right machinery in place and go to legislator, lobby for it, and make clear that this is our industry, our body, our choice, and then we have to funnel the right people, the right teams, and we have to put them in place. But we can only do it together, because none of us individually, or even maybe in a small group, will be strong enough to stand against that wall of regulations, what's going to come down on us.
And I know that we've kind of gotten away from the ink thing, but I kind of like the fact that we did that, because it's a bigger problem. It's about us communicating and stop the competition in between each other, and start to gather as a whole and really be able to take on the issues that affect tattooing. Because you and I, we talked about this the other day. There's no going back.
No.
Government knows who we are. The corporations, they know who we are. They know what the kind of money runs through us. They know what's happening. And when they can't get a piece of that, that's when things change, because they want a piece. And they're going to take it they're going to take it out of our ass is what they're going to do. And that's just the bottom line. If we don't kind of pull together and try to figure out a way to work with one another versus fight with one another, man, because everybody's making money. Everybody's doing their thing. Everybody in manufacturers, supply companies, tattoo artists, consumers, everybody's making money. We don't want that to change. We want it to stay kind of in our control of how we do what we do for our clients. And that's
the biggest part is we have to define ourselves as an industry. And that's really the message, I think, whatever. And the consumer or the client or the person which wants to get a tattoo, that they are part of this industry, right? Or this lifestyle. It's not even an industry, it's a lifestyle. I mean, the most of the people today, it's their way of life to be tattooed. Both parents are tattooed or not, their kids getting tattooed. It's a lifestyle of expression. It's a lifestyle of who they are. It's in some form, it's a healing form of, like, right, for people, they heal from something
tragedy.
mentally, physical abuse. It's this is all not being considered in what's happening here. And I think as long as we get grouped into the cosmetic field, it will not be considered. We need to define with everybody who has a tattoo or is a tattoo artist or does anything for that industry, who we are, what we stand for, why it's important to us. And that brings us back to the unity of the whole lifestyle. We are this group of people. That's what we like. We like to get tattooed. We like to make a choice. We like to mark our body. And if you want to remove it because you don't have one, that's not my problem. That's your problem. You need to see a psychiatrist, right? If you always think that you have to think about what happened with my tattoos, many people have told me, what are you going to do when you're 60? I'm almost 60. I don't know. I still look the same. So it makes no.
Me too, all the time.
It's like, I don't even see him, right? The people say, oh, you have so many tattoos. I said, do I? I don't know, because that's me. It's just who I am, right? And always have been. So, and then most people which have tattoos think that way. It hasn't been triggered yet that they stand behind it and say, I am unique. This is what I like. I'm in charge of my own body, and I want to be part of this industry, and I want to have a freedom of choice. And that's basically what we have to do.
And that's a beautiful, thank you for saying that, because that's how I feel about this industry. And by having conversations like we're having right now, like we're going to have on Friday, it really opens up the floor to let people know that nobody is trying to corner the market. Nobody is trying to take over tattooing to be mine. This is mine. It's everybody's. We are a family, man. It doesn't matter whether you started in Europe or you started in Long Beach or you started in Seattle, wherever you started, you're part of that family. And
there's nothing more multicultural than tattooing.
Oh my God, yes.
Nothing. I don't care what anybody says. It doesn't see, the most color doesn't see any color, heritage, or nothing. It doesn't matter where you came from in the world, doesn't matter what you did, it doesn't matter what it is, we are always bound by tattooing. Yes. And this is what's misunderstood. People don't understand that when they have no tattoos. They don't get it. Though it's that simple. When we went to a convention 20 years ago, we were looking forward to see our brothers who worked in California. We didn't even speak English at that time. We are translators, but we were like hosted like we were family members. Right. And it still greet each other, right? Hey, what's up? Because it's almost like it's their way of life. They understand. It's like people driving a Tesla, right? And everybody greets each other or whatever. It doesn't matter. Yeah, right. I think that's what has to be done correctly. That message has to be relayed, and it has to be spoken out. It's so restricted. It has to be said. We are the tattoo industry. We are in a lifestyle for tattooing. That's what we want to be.
And that's where we need to speak in a unified voice. And the situation with the UE and the ink is just the beginning. It's just the tip of the iceberg. So instead of reacting at a later time, we are pre-gaming what's happening and just and trying to figure out the conversations that we need to have to move forward and not get, pardon my French, fucked the way we're probably going to get fucked.
Yeah, maybe we have to have 1 million people march in Washington, right, with tattoos. Then maybe they're going to start listening. And
as long as we stay 6 feet apart with masks, right?
But that's okay. That's no problem. We just we stay outside Washington and come down. So, but I think that even that jokingly said, I think this could be possible, right? There's 100 million people with tattoos in this country, and if at least 10% say enough is enough, then people got to start listening, But currently, nobody says enough is enough.
Yeah, and I do believe that one of the reasons that I got to thank you for doing this, because I want to make sure that you as anybody as a tattooer that's watching this, a business owner, shop owner, hair salon, whatever, that they get this message to the consumer, because basically what it's going to do is this will not only take over tattooing, but it'll take over cosmetology. It'll take over art. If they, sooner or later, pigments are not going to be able to be put on canvases because of something that has to do with the emissions. After 5 years, the ink breaks down on paper and whatever. They can do whatever they want because they have that kind of power. We need to unify together to kind of fight this battle for tattooing. And that's really what it's about. It's not about the manufacturer. It's not about any of that things. It's not about the ink. It's about tattooing being protected. By the way, I love your shirt. Your shirt's great. Yeah. it couldn't have been more well worn better by anybody. I appreciate that. That's really what we are, a tattoo community. This is a lifestyle. When you walk in your house, I am sure it looks like a tattooer lives there. When you walk in,
absolutely not.
No.
Of course it does. It's like I always say, people ask me, say, how you do it? You work 20 hours a day. You're in there for 40 years. When are you going to stop working? And I say, I don't know. I never went to work.
Right.
That's all I do. It's what I eat. It's what I do. It's what I see. It's what I read. It's a
lifestyle. It is a lifestyle.
Absolutely.
And that is the point. When people come to get tattooed by us, they want to join that club. They want to join that. They want a membership into I can speak about who I am right here, right here, right here, wherever I need to. And by shutting this, by this situation getting any worse and shutting these people down, we're quieting their voices as well as our own. And that's where we really need to come together and really fight the good fight for tattooing. And this ink thing is just the tip of the iceberg, I believe.
Absolutely. And for a final word, I think it's also everybody who was going for the past years or makes a living out of tattooing and feeds their kids and their children and, maybe their neighbors, their brother helps them out, whatever it is. It's really your ethical responsibility to give the support back to the industry because it fed us all and it feeds us all, right? Every single tattoo shop owner is being fed by that in some form or way. So I think it's our ethical responsibility to really work and keep our industry alive, and make clear that we have a free path of freedom of choice, what we create and how we create it in the best and safest way.
You know what? It's so well said, Mario. And I appreciate you joining us today for this. It will be up on YouTube very shortly. We're going to get this one up. Friday, we have the round table. The artist Sean Anderson is going to be there, who is a great opponent of tattooing. Aaron Bell, Luke Westman, Jeremy Corns, Dave Cruzman, myself, Mario Barth will be there, roundtable, just bringing the ideas to the table of where we can move forward here. Like I said, it's not just about the ink. It's something that you and I have been talking about throughout this whole thing. And previously, it's not just about the ink. It's about tattooing and what you can do for it. So thank you so much, man, for being on tonight. And blessings to you and the family, man. And stay safe out there in Vegas. And we'll see you Friday at 8.
Sounds great. Keep them buzzing.
Yeah. Peace and love, dude.
All right.
Have a
Peace.
great one.
Bye.
Later, bud. So that was great, man. Tune in. It's going to be a great show on Friday. Wynn's World Podcast is really, really trying to keep tattooing alive and trying to keep it moving forward. From the old school to the new school, and from the new school to the newer school. So blessings to you. Thank you for watching. We'll see you on Friday. Peace and love, everybody.